to Secure Radio in Sarasota, Florida. We have a great guest today. The name is Nicole Mellichar. Hi, Nicole.
Hello. How are you? Thank you for having me.
How are you? Welcome to Secure Radio. Today we're going to talk about you, your tennis, and how you started, and where you're going, what's your goal this year. Let's start about you introducing yourself, Nicole.
Okay. Well, I was born in the Czech Republic, but I grew up in Stuart, Florida. I currently live in Bradenton since the end of 2018, and I started playing from a young age. My mom was pregnant playing tennis with me, and then in the baby carriage next to the tennis court. And then my older sister played. She's 5 years older. Her name is Jane. And little sister wanted to be better than her bigger sister, and that's sort of how I got started and how it evolved.
Mm-hmm. So to introduce you to the radio listener, Nicole Melichar is an American tennis player. She won the 2018 Wimbledon Mixed Double Championship and was a finalist in the ladies' doubles the same year. She represented the USA in the 2018 Fed Cup finals against the Czech Republic, has won 7 WTA titles in doubles, reached a career high of number 12 in the world, has reached the quarterfinals or better in all the Grand Slam and mixed double. Wow, that's quite of an accomplishment, Nicole.
Thank
now,
you.
My first question is playing the Czech Republic, and some of these kids or some of these players knows you, and people on TV or around the stadium say, oh, she's a Czech player. What's happening? What's the dynamic there?
Well, it was interesting there because both my parents grew up Czech, and my grandparents still live in the Czech Republic, and most of my family is over there. And I was born there, and I am Czech as well as I am American, but I've lived in the States my whole life, and I represent the United States. And even though I'm very proud of my culture and my background, I am just as proud or even more proud to be American, and I love representing the stars and stripes on the flag. And so when I'm over there, I respect everyone, and I respect where I do come from. So I know that I am Czech, but I make sure I let people know that I play for America and that I am indeed American.
Mm-hmm. Good. We're all Americans.
Yes.
Let's go. That's a very good answer, because actually to remind our radio listener, Ivan Lendl was born in Czech Republic. He later on naturalized American. Martina Navratilova also became American. So America is a land of, it's a home and welcome many different nationalities. So there's no issue with that. Let's go back to your beginning, because in history of humans or anything, there's a beginning and the middle and end. How you started? You mentioned that your mom was pregnant, but when did you find out, hey, or when did people start talking about you, hey, that girl Nicole is good? When did you figure out, hey, this is going to be my profession one day? At what age?
Well, I played my first tennis tournament when I was 8 years old, and probably by 11 is when I felt like I wanted to start to take it more seriously. I had a friend who started homeschooling, and I was a bit jealous of her that she was able to homeschool and get more hours on the tennis court, and I had to go to school, and I was struggling to get more hours on the court, so I basically begged my parents to let me homeschool. And from the 7th grade, I finally convinced them. So in the 7th grade, I was living in Stewart at home, and I was practicing morning and afternoon. And even though Florida is a very big tennis community, in Stewart or around the Stewart area, there wasn't a whole lot. I had to drive quite far to play with good juniors, or else I just had to play with adults. And it's kind of difficult when you're trying to organize your own practices on a daily basis, and you maybe have a private coach or occasionally getting private lessons, but no real structure. So that's when I started getting letters from various tennis academies, and I decided again, I had to beg my parents to let me go, but I chose the John Newcomb Tennis Academy over in Texas. So I left home from the age of just before I turned 13 to go to Texas. I lived there for 3 years. Unbelievable 3 years. Learned a lot. Had several amazing coaches there. The ones I would mention that helped me the most were Phil Hendry and Jimmy Brown. And from there I went to Arizona to work with in a more private setting with Nick Blackwood and Andre Pavel, and I stayed there until I was 18. And in those years I decided not to go to college and to turn pro, and then when I was 18 I moved back home and I started traveling the tour full time. And in between tournaments, I would train at Club Med in Port St. Lucie, mainly with Gabe Jaramillo and Scott Del Mastro and the team over there. So that's sort of how my teenage years progressed.
Yeah. So in terms of your first adventure into Newcomb Academy, how was that?
Mm-hmm.
You traveling away from home. First, there was a lot of academy in Florida. You skip all of Florida to go to Texas.
Yes. Well, Newcomb's gave me a good scholarship, so I could afford to go to Newcomb's, whereas the academies in Florida were more expensive, and I couldn't afford it. But it wasn't easy. It was a 20-hour drive or a flight, and flying is never cheap. But I'm very close with my parents and my family, so being away from them was hard. And I was one of the youngest when I got there. And kids aren't always so nice, so some of the kids were really nice to me, but some of the kids were mean to me. I was bullied a bit. But I loved the tennis. I loved the tennis environment, so I wanted to stay. I felt like I was improving. And overall, they're some of the best 3 years of my life. I have wonderful memories from Nukes, and if I were to go back and make the decision again, I would definitely do it again, because I think those were 3 extremely beneficial years of my life.
That's good. That's good to hear. Now, you went to Nuke, then you went to Nick Blackwood, and then you finished at Club Med. What did you compete in the USTA junior tournament?
I did compete in the USTA juniors. I was top 10 in the country in the 14 and under and 16 and under. In the 18 and under, I actually don't even remember what my best was. I maybe got top 10 or top 20. I'm not even sure anymore. But when I was 16, I sort of stopped playing as many USTA junior events, and I tried to mix in some ITF junior events and also ITF pro events, the futures, the 10,000s and stuff. So I wasn't really focused on playing the USTA anymore, just because they're expensive to play because you don't get any international exposure and you don't get any money for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the strategy was to go ITF junior and WTA level, low level tournament.
Yes.
Good. Now let's tell us a story. What was your best performance in ITF juniors, and what country were you had the best result?
Well, I only played ITFs that were local in the States. I never played any ITFs outside the States in juniors. But I won the ITF, I remember, in Waco, Texas. It was in not Waco, Texas. It was in College Station, Texas, at the Texas A&M University. They hosted ITF level 4 there, and I actually remember in that tournament I was still training at Nukes at the time, and I had to play against so many of my fellow Nukes players in the semis and finals. In particular, I played against a couple of girls that would almost always beat me in practice, but then when it came to this tournament setting, I ended up beating them, which was a little bit of a surprise to the coaches and the other players in the academy. So I think that is probably one of my nicest memories from ITF juniors, to really once it came down to winning a match when it mattered, that I came through.
Well, that's an interesting subject there. How did you manage? Because these girls used to beat you in practice. What changed, and what did you do differently in the match play situation at ITF?
I think I really just set my focus and tried to understand what they were doing to beat me in practice, and then I tried to figure out what I was doing well to win points against them, and then string it all together. I think they maybe had felt a little bit of pressure because they had beaten me in practice more often. It's not that I never beat them in practice, but they would beat me more often than not. But I think just really having a good game plan of understanding, okay, this is what they're going to try to do to me based on how they've beat me in the past, and this is what works against them. So really just trying to focus on my own strengths and not let them get to my weaknesses.
Wow. That's called adjustment of strategy, which is interesting. That's great. So then, everyone on juniors or pro tour usually remember where they got their first either WTA or ATP point from. You remember where you had your first one from?
Yeah, I got my first point in Vegas.
In Vegas.
I was playing the 50,000 ITF in Vegas, and I was in the qualifying, and I beat a girl from Venezuela, if I remember correctly. I think she was ranked like 300 something. I can't remember her name. I would need to look that up, but I do remember the match. I remember the court, the club, everything, and I just played super aggressive. It's one of those things.
You were gunning for that first point. This is my first point in the mirror, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Las Vegas. Vegas was the stepping point. Now, you forfeited college. Can you tell us what went on in your mind by skipping college? Because I know American players get a lot of pressure. You get offer from all the colleges. Everyone wants you to visit. So tell us a little bit about that part.
Well, there's a few things. At one point, I was the top recruit in the country. So that was putting a lot of pressure on me because I had all the schools hounding me. I felt that I basically had my choice of anywhere. A lot of coaches trying to contact me and talk to me and stuff. but I never wanted to go to college. And the coach I was working at the time, Nick Blackwood, he was helping me and supporting me in that decision. So I almost refused to go on college